Streaming 24/7.
24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana. Oh, Afrika nakupenda sana.
Welcome to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself. I am RHULANI BALOYI. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As you are joining us on Facebook and YouTube, you are invited to be part of this conversation. Please drop down your comments, your questions on the comment section. If you are joining us via the Bold Moves Radio, you are welcome to be part of the conversation by sending through your questions and your comments to the WhatsApp number 081-358-8745. The number is 081-358-8745. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio, and my name is RHULANI BALOYI. I am your host as we come to you every Sunday from 4 o'clock up until 5 o'clock. We say, join us and be part of this conversation, because as prudent women, we spark conversations so that the prudent women can go all out and seek more information about the different topics that we're having. Because a prudent woman is a woman who has got knowledge of all different kinds of issues, so that when the time comes where she needs to make decisions, where she needs to advise her loved ones, she can be intentional because she has the information that is required. And you are with us this afternoon. I'm not alone in this conversation. I have with me Patience Napo. Patience Napo is not her first time joining us. She is always here with us when we talk on social issues because she's a social worker. And this afternoon, as we are in the month of December, I would like us to pause and remember all those people whom we lost through the pandemic of HIV and AIDS, and even to think about those who are living with the virus. Even as the nation who were commemorating HIV and AIDS on the 1st of December, I would like to say, let each one of us, one way or another, we have been affected, even if we were not infected. But what's important, for all these different things, all these different viruses, all you need to know is to have knowledge around the issue so that you can respond appropriately. And I understand lately there's a lot of advancement in terms of scientific research on the medication that one can take when they're HIV positive. And what is nice is that, research is showing us that those who know their status tends to live longer other than those who do not know their status. So I would like to say, even as we commemorate HIV and AIDS month, the 1st of December, that each one of us, we ought to know our status because we will respond appropriately. But today's conversation is not about that. We are talking on another pandemic, a pandemic that our president of this country has termed to be the 4th pandemic after COVID-19, the gender-based violence. I have with me Patience Napo. We're going to be talking about that. And our topic this afternoon, we are saying toxic masculinity and its impact to gender-based violence. Patience, thank you very much that you are always available to be with us. And we learn a lot when we talk on social issues around our lives, how we ought to relate with our loved ones, and even the community at large. And thank you so much for joining us. For the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time here on Prudent Woman, I would like to invite you, Patience, maybe just introduce yourself. Let our audience know who are we talking about when we talk about Patience Napo.
Good afternoon, RHULANI, and thanks for having me this afternoon. I think I'm already part of the family with the Prudent Women. Greetings to all the people who are streaming from all our social media platform as well as our radio. I'm Patience Napo. I'm a social worker. I'm responsible for the Victim Empowerment Program and the prevention of gender-based violence in Capricorn District. I am a qualified social worker. I've been practicing for the past 20 years, so it's a bit long that I've been in the field, but I'm grateful for the honor and you always trusting that I need to educate women. Education is ongoing, learning is ongoing. So I appreciate your invite.
Thank you so much, Sis Patience. For us, we appreciate your availability to be able to share with us the knowledge that you have, because as a social worker, you went through a level of training, and as a practicing social worker, of course, you go through on a daily basis. You get to encounter some of the social problems that we are having as a nation. And as Prudent women, we say, knowledge is power. When we know about all these things, at times you may think you are not a perpetrator, more especially when it comes to all these type of social problems. But only when you hear someone talking about it and explaining that you are able to say, oh, maybe I'm also a perpetrator. So you respond appropriately to the people that are around you, more especially your loved ones. And as I indicated, the month of December, from the 25th of November up until the 10th of December, it's a period which we have set aside to talk about gender-based violence, a campaign that runs from the 25th of November up until the 10th of December. And our president has launched it. And when he was launching it, he caught my attention by bringing in an element of masculinity, saying there is research that says it may be a contributing factor. But before we go into that, as we said, we're going to be talking about masculinity. I wish for you, as patients, just to alert us, what is the significance of having this campaign? If someone was to say, why should, as a nation, we set aside so many days, 16 days, where we are talking about this issue? Why should we have this campaign?
Thank you, Sesolani. Maybe also to just indicate that the Deputy President launched the campaign in Mpumalanga, and the theme for this year is accelerating action to end gender-based violence and femicide, and says leaving no one behind. And what is also important for people to note, our viewers and listenership to note, is that these days we no longer talk about 16 days, the 25th to the 10th, but we talk about 365 campaign on GBV. So we want the campaigns to start day 1 in January until day 31 in December, so that we raise awareness. What we say is that between this period, which is the 16 days, we want to sit and reflect whether our strategies are working, whether our policies are working, what is it that we need to improve. But as already you have indicated, the reason why we need to have the gender-based violence campaign, which is the 365 campaigns against children and women in particular, is that we need to raise awareness about gender-based violence, because it's a scourge in our country. Every second household or third household, they're experiencing a GBV in one form or another. Our children, our women are not safe in our country because it is termed a violent society. So we want also to challenge the discriminatory attitude that is there against women and children. And we also want to call for improved laws. And you would hear when we discuss further, where we talk about some of the amendments that we've made in terms of our legislations to ensure that we strengthen the fight against gender-based violence. It is also key this period to inform our victims of the rights and the support services that is available. And if I'm to give an example why the right is, because you will realize that when the justice system, when you are arrested as a perpetrator, scales of the justice system, victims were saying it looks like this. So what we are saying, we want the scale to actually come and be like this. So we want the rights, the victim, as much as we inform the perpetrators who've got the right to remain silent, we also want to inform our victim that you've got the right to restitution, right to information, right to psychosocial support. All those rights need to be informed. So we strengthened the promotion of those rights during this period. Thank you, Sesolani.
Thank you very much. I think it's this type of campaigns that are very important. And when you have not observed or you have not been closer to someone who went through the same challenges, you may tend to look at it as a statistics or think it's an exaggeration. But when, as a nation, we focus our attention to this type of things, to look at it, and as you are rightfully putting it, I love the fact that even our media, they go all out talking about all these things. And even us as Prudent Women, this is part of us being part of the campaign. And I would like to invite our listeners this afternoon to be with us, and please, let's have a conversation. Send through your comments on these things. Send through your questions. There may be something that which you may want to alert us. There may be something that you wish CES patients should be able to clarify for you. So this is an opportunity. This is a campaign. This pandemic affects each one of us, because it is because of this type of pandemics that as a nation, we do not see our success. We keep on complaining. When you look at social issues that we're having, problems, most of them emanates from this type of problems. GBV affects a human being in totality, and we need to deal with it. So I would like to invite all of you who are listening to us, let us be part of this conversation. CES patients, we said we are going to focus just but one issue that is said to be a contributing factor on GBV. And not to say the other things are not important, but it's because we realize that the 1 hour that we have as Prudent Women may not be enough, and we cannot talk about everything in one day. But we would like to talk about masculinity so that we can bring that awareness. And I trust that at the end of this conversation, most of us will be able to identify, most of us may even be able to repent, because somehow, somewhere, we find ourselves being a party to encouraging certain types of behavior that is linked to masculinity. Says patients, maybe let us start here, where you indicate to us what is masculinity when we talk gender-based violence. Our apologies, seems our guest is having a technical problem, but we will continue with the conversation. I will want us to go on a net break when we're sorting out the technical problem that she's having, but we'll be right back with you. Let us go on a net break. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman. With myself, I am RHULANI Baloyi. I am your host. Today, we are having with us CES patients Napo. She is a social worker. We are talking about masculinity and its contribution to gender-based violence. Before we went on an ad break, we were talking to CES patients on the importance of all these different campaigns. CES patients, as we continue with our conversation, can you please highlight to us what is masculinity? Seems we're not yet back with her. She's struggling to connect. Let us go on a break. Let me try to get her back online. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. Our apologies for that technical glitch. We are talking on masculinity and its contribution to gender-based violence. We have with us Ms. Patience Napo. She's a social worker. She's talking to us about this topic. Says Patience, what is masculinity? Seems we're having a lot of technical glitches this afternoon. Our apologies. We are talking on gender-based violence with Ms. Patience Napo. I will wait to hear from our technical team. Yes, I see she's back. Sorry about that to our listeners and our viewers. Says Patience. We were talking on the importance of the campaign for gender-based violence. And we are focusing on one element for today, which is masculinity, which is said to be a contributing factor in terms of gender-based violence. But not to say masculinity is wrong, but we would like you to take us through when we talk about masculinity linked to gender-based violence, what is it and how does it contribute to gender-based violence?
Thank you, Sis Roland, and I think apologies for the signal problem. I'm not sure. Just think that is a signal problem. What I was explaining is that masculinity itself is not a problem because those are aspects of behavior which men are expected to display or achieve in order to prove their manhood. So it means you'll have qualities or appearances traditionally associated with men or boys. What would be wrong is when you have a toxic, what we call a toxic masculinity. And you'll realize that the president, during the dialogue that he had with boys and men, he said, as I quote him, men need to end toxic masculinity and treat women with respect, recognition, and equality. And this was because most of the time we find people asking, why do we focus on women? We have Women's Day, Women's March, Women Empowerment, Girls Program, Girls what, and all those things. And he said the answer is straightforward. It's because there is a crisis in our society, a terrible crisis that will destroy us if we don't overcome it. And that crisis is a violence against women and children. And that is actually perpetuated by men in majority. Masculinity in itself, when we say you have toxic masculinity, is when you have an attitude or set of social guidelines stereotypically associated with being men, like you're called, you are bold, you don't have to cry, you don't have to show emotions, and these in a way negatively affect or impact men, women, and society in general. Some of those are associated with them men being expected to be sort of militarily so, you have a specific emphasis on what does it mean to achieve. And I'll give a simple example, Sesulan. If today we don't have water in, let's say in Sishiro, we don't have water. When we want water, we'll actually burn tires, we'll put stones, we'll do all those things, we'll burn schools and all those things. And what will happen is that our government, in a way, will respond because our government responds quicker when there's violence. So we had became a violent society. And in majority, people that will be in the forefront will realize that those people are men. So the relationship between it, masculinity and GBV, is on the basis that men are actually expected to become economic breadwinners or providers. They must have physical strength, they must have expertise with regard to sex, they must have an uncontrollable sexual appetite, having multiple partners. So this is what the society has actually built, and this is what we are terming a toxic masculinity. And sometimes due to pressure on men to achieve these factors, sometimes if men are unable to maintain or have to be financial providers, then they resort to violence in order to compensate one aspect that they're not reaching. That's when we consider men should be unemotional, they should be fearless. Like, if there's something, we expect that men should be there. Men seek to be authoritarian, they must be controlling. So toxic masculinity just mean, in the simplest way, those attributes that you use to violate the rights of the other person. So if whatever behavior that you are doing, if there's violation of human rights and you feel that you are entitled to somebody else on the basis of the position that you're given by society, that's what we term toxic masculinity. And you will realize this, and when we go, if you go and say, why can a man who's married to a woman rape his wife? They will say to you, no, but the man has an authority towards the body of the wife. So you have those things that continues to be perpetuated by men because somebody else in society has given them the right. Maybe to emphasize this one is that masculinities are socialized rather than inherent. So nobody was born doing that. We socialize them towards that aspect. So it means it's a learned behavior. And for us to deal with it, we need to come up with ways to unlearn, to teach our men to unlearn this kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm. As you were going about explaining masculinity, and as you rightfully put it, it's not a bad thing, because we have been created as a man and a woman. But the question is, what do you do afterwards? What do you do with all these things? And as you say it, to say, it's something that was socialized around it. Someone may be asking, then it's part of our culture. Because one thing that I've observed especially in our culture as Black people, or in our circles, let me not say in our culture, in our circles as Black people, we tend to associate anything that we want to be able to validate it, we say it's our culture. What will you say to that person who's saying, but this is part of our culture? The things that you have indicated become toxic masculinity. Someone may be saying it's part of our culture because our forefathers used to do that. What would you like to say to such a person?
Maybe first, RHULANI, is just to indicate that our exposures to social norm that encourages violence and male dominance are something that brings in the toxic masculinity. And I would agree. Hence, I've said it is a social behavioral problem rather than a culture, because culture in itself would not be done in order to hurt somebody else or to violate their rights. And I agree, it happened and we left it and it became a norm. Things like homophobia, like, toxic masculinity teaches men that homosexuality is a deviation from traditional masculinity and that gay men are less masculine. Like, even if you are not a gay person, by the fact that the way in which you dress, maybe you like doing hairdressing, or you like dressmaking, or things that are associated with feminine characters. So usually you will be termed, a gay or something else. So men are expected to be this way. And that is something that we came with it way back. And then something like need for control, toxic masculinity encourages men to assert their power and dominance. And you see it more often. If you go into the event where we are saying today is men's dialogue, you will see how men look at you if you are inside the hall. Like, they will expect you to get out of the hall because whatever that they're saying doesn't fit you to be there because you are a woman. So women are always given this position that is like a substitute or somebody else who's just there as an additional person. So, something that we also call the promiscuity, toxic masculinity praises men for having multiple sexual partners. I mean, in our villages, if you are a woman and you have multiple, you will be called all these names. But if you're a man and you do that, you are praised. This man, hi, oh, daughter, man, you're doing well. This man can afford to have so many wives. So it praises things that not online, but on the basis that they're done by men. The other issues that you will see in terms of toxic masculinity is refusing to help with household duties. the traditional men will actually reject roles traditionally considered for women. And I'll give you an example. You'll find, I've seen in many working families, you would have gone to work, you'll be working, and you come back, you're tired. And you've left 4 boys and 1 man in the house. When you arrive, tired as you are from the work, they will ask you, Mommy, what are we eating today? So all of them would not think that, cooking and doing all those things are meant for them. So it will be meant for a woman. And risk taking, men are expected to take risks. They should not fail in their lives, and if they don't take risks, they're not considered to be men enough. The issues around sexual aggression towards women is things that we came with it way back. Women who have more influence but are most likely to believe that they are entitled to women's body. Like, they will tell you dress this way, so what do you expect? I have to have sex with you whether you like it or not. Men are expected to be mentally and physically tough without breaking. So if you now start crying, they will go like, yo, you are just a sissy, you are weak, our men cannot cry. Why are you crying? The issues around violence, men are encouraged to use aggression to assert their dominance. And you'll see that these are things that we've grown up with. We came back with it way back, like, when you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and if they beat you, they feel like they've achieved, because for them to ascertain their position, they have to use violence. And it's very difficult because we need to teach our young boys. We need to socially conscientize our young boys. Hence today, says Rolana, I'm wearing the t-shirt that says conversation with my son. So we want our fathers, mothers to have a proper conversation with the children. So that is a culture that violated human rights, which we cannot continue with it if we want to have a society free of GBV.
Mm-hmm. It's a sad situation when you look at our society having validate all these wrong things, and we keep on using them to ascertain someone's masculinity, someone's gender, let me say, because as you say that when someone is soft, we automatically consider them to be gay because they are soft. You say they are not men enough, and which is so unfair, because when you look at social problems, are exactly what leads to the ills of a nation. We talk today of all sorts of problems: drug abuse, alcohol abuse, families that are child-headed, children who do not have parents on the street. When you zoom down into them, you are able to see elements of social problems that have happened within a family structure. And it is what goes on in a family structure that will determine the type of a nation that we shall have. And it's so unfair that as a nation, although we acknowledge that there is a lot of development, we are being incorporated in a global village. But for some reason, I do not know, we want to stick to the past on things that were supposed to be impacting our progressiveness. Like you were saying, a woman goes to work and comes back, and the men who were remaining in the house still expects that woman to be fending for the family. So we want things to be done the way they were done donkey years ago, and we do not want to be progressive. Yet we want the benefits that comes with globalization, and it cannot be. And we appreciate professionals like yourselves as patients who go all out to be able to relearn society on all these wrong things. As you say, it's something we are socialized on it, because it's what I'm being told by the next person next to me to say this is how you ought to behave. And if each and every one of us, we can start behaving responsibly, start acknowledging other people's rights, we will be a better nation. I would like us to go on an ad break. And when we come back, we will now zoom into the different programs that as a nation we have, not only government, but even non-governmental organization, just to highlight them, to our listeners and our viewers so that each one of us can see and be able to play their role. Let us go on an ad break.
Are you ready for the ultimate dietary powerhouse? Look no further than Masana Dietitian's Nutro Boost. Our scientifically formulated low GI food is designed to give you the boost you need to fuel your body and reach your health goals. With Nutro Boost, you have the flexibility to enjoy it as a high fiber cereal or a satisfying shake. Simply mix it with water and indulge in the mouth-watering flavors that we have to offer. But that's not all. NutriBoost is packed with essential nutrients that are beneficial for your overall well-being. Enriched with 20 immune-boosting vitamins and minerals, it's a convenient and effective way to support your immune system. And here's the best part. NutriBoost is gluten-free, egg-free, and high in omega-3, making it suitable for those with dietary restrictions or allergies. Need an energy boost? NutriBoost has you covered. It's high in energy and protein, providing you with the fuel you need to power through your day. Whether it's a busy morning or an intense workout session, say goodbye to midday slumps and hello to sustained energy with NutriBoost. Try it today and experience the difference. For orders or to become a distributor, contact us on the following details.
You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself. I'm RHULANI BALOYI. I am your host. We come to you every Sunday from 4 o'clock up until 5 o'clock. This afternoon, we're having a conversation with Patience Napo, who is a social worker. We are talking on gender-based violence with specific reference to masculinity. Before we went on a net break, she took us through what masculinity is all about, and when we talk toxic masculinity, what is it that we're talking about? And I see one of our viewers here having a comment saying males should be taught and correctly socialized from a young age. Of course, it must start when you are still young, and our families should not mirror society's negative stereotypes. They should do chores. They should be allowed to express emotions. We cannot wait and expect them to unlearn when they are much older. And that's why our guest this afternoon, she said she's wearing a t-shirt that is saying conversation with my son. And says Patience, as we continue with our conversation, we acknowledge as society that government has done and has come up with a whole lot of programs in order to address this challenge. And we have a lot of NGOs who are having different programs that are fighting this pandemic. But, you know, for some reason, it seems like we are not winning this war. What would you like to say in terms of you as a professional, the research that is out there, that is before you, and what is it that you can say maybe we're not doing well as a nation?
Thank you, Sister Roland. Maybe just also to indicate that I'm thinking, and I'm of the opinion, maybe it's because I'm positive in the field. I think as government and NGOs, we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot in terms of GBV, more especially with the implementation of the NSP, and the fact that, you know, I get comfort when I see cases reported. Maybe what we need to do is also to find, you know, ways of also showing the statistics on the perpetrators that were sentenced. Because for me, when I see cases reported, I think it means our campaigns are reaching them where it's supposed to reach. And one document that government came with that I think, if implemented well, we're going to find ourselves in a way going towards, you know, dealing with the issues of gender-based violence, which is NSP on gender-based violence and femicide. It strictly provide, and I'm going to shorten these 6 pillars so that people have an understanding of the 6 pillars that we're talking through. So the 6 pillars in the NSP simple mean we need to have a collaborative work in dealing with issues of gender-based violence. Like we need to move from, today you are having this campaign, the other department tomorrow goes to this other campaign. So we are expected by government to actually have collaborative. When you go into one area, we must take all our resources to that particular area. And these 6 pillars simple means number 1 is leadership and accountability. That simple says we need our leaders who would put enough infrastructure, budget, ensure that we have enough resources to actually deal with issues of GBV. It also discourages the issues of bystanders. Remember, initially, you would not report any case. You will take the case to the social worker to report. Now, every citizen has an obligation to actually report any case that is happening that they are aware of. And it says failure to do that, you are as guilty as the person who's committing the GBV. And then you go to number 2, it talks about the prevention and social cohesion. So we want to go back to issues where your child's neighbor is your child, the street people are stronger together. We have campaigns that goes into our areas and villages. We make sure that our campaign actually yield result. We just don't go into the village and have 300 people, but we need to see result in those areas and villages that we're doing campaign. And if you go to pillar number 2, it talks about the security, the safety, your subs, your justice, your education and other department. It just simply talk about having the laws that protect our victims. And you will see now we are saying there's no bail for victim for perpetrator of gender-based violence. You can go now and testify during bail hearing and provide evidence during bail hearing that can actually assist in ensuring that the perpetrator doesn't get bail. So we had amended a lot of legislations. If you go to number 4, just simple mean is care support and healing, which we need to see all our CSOs providing psychosocial support, your social workers doing your victim impact report and other services. And when you go to number 5, it talks about the economic power. So we are saying now that you've moved towards all these streams, you have been provided with counseling, justice has been realized. What is it that you need to do? We need to actually economic empower you so that you don't find yourself going back to the cycle of poverty and the cycle of abuse. And then if you go to number 6, we want where we'll be able to do the information management and research to actually check whether whatever that we've done, is it working, is it yielding results? And it is expected of every department, every organization to report on these 6 pillars that are reported in the Department of Women, Children, and Persons with Disability. So as government, I think we are going somewhere. We have not yet won the campaign. I think in the last week campaign when I was doing the presentation, I said we are not reaching the correct target. We are talking amongst ourselves as stakeholders. We're not talking to the people that committing this crime. Even those that are still committing, but we are saying we need to go back to where our perpetrators are, so that we find our campaigns having an impact, because we can't keep on supporting, we can't keep on giving information to the victim, whereas the perpetrators are left in the dark.
Wow, that's wonderful, Sis Patience, to hear of government's programs that are geared up towards fighting this pandemic. Because as society, whenever you hear that of a case, it tends to cloud you and you feel like we're not winning this war. So I think it will do a whole lot of good for us to be able to see such statistics. And when you say you believe we're doing more, because when you see the number of reported statistics, it encourages you. Because previously, most victims will not report. And I love the policy stance that you are taking to say, not only the victim should be able to report, or the social worker, but each and every one of us. I think that will do wonders, because some of the victims, of course, they are fearful of reporting their perpetrators. And linked to that, it's about economic status of women. Most women stay in this type of relationships or environment just because they cannot provide for themselves. And for government to have realized that there's a link, and you are now saying you should be able to support the victim economically, that will go a long way. And all these programs, of course, they are meant for a victim. And you are saying, as you ended your your explanation on the programs, to say even the perpetrator needs some sort of support. And what we have been doing as a nation, from where I sit, I've seen us focusing more on the victims and forgetting the perpetrators. Because as we said, it's not something that you are taught, but you are socialized on it. Something that you are socialized in it, unless you are fortunate to have someone who comes in and open your eyes to see that it's wrong, you may live thinking it's right. And I've observed that some of the perpetrators are not aware that they are perpetrators. They think they're doing the right thing. They think doing the opposite of what they are doing will make them less of a human being. Let me not say of a man, because we are aware that it's not only women, men who are perpetrators, even women can be perpetrators. I would like you to share with us, what is it that you are doing, NGOs and government together as partners, in terms of support to perpetrators, or you enlightening them to see that the behavior that they are fostering, it's actually wrong.
Thank you, Sister Roland. I'm happy that you've mentioned that some of the people are victims who are perpetrators who are not even aware that they are committing any crime. But I also need to remind everyone that wherever your action violates any human right of any individual, you need to understand that you are committing a crime. What we need for the perpetrators is to show that they visit the offices of a DST. Let's say, for instance, you're a perpetrator, but you're not arrested. Please visit so that we are able to give you your life skills program. Currently we have the good program as DSG that talks to the men championing change. In this program, we're training men who are going to be role models for other men who will actually mentor and guide other men. We have programs such as your behavior modification, your social and behavior change. We have the programs that is your marriage enrichment programs, your sexual offenses program, your anger management program, your diversion program, just to ensure that at least you are able to make a turn in whatever behavior that you're doing that is affecting another person. One thing that I've seen that we're having challenges with toxic masculinity is that when men goes and report the case, they are said to be weak. You can't deal with your own issues. Why are you going to the social worker? You're going to the shrink, or why are you going to the psychologist? The only people that goes there are people that are weak. People who will take advantage of you. So the backlash that come from men seeking help is something that we need to denounce, and we need to denounce it with the highest voice that it could be. That men are required to go and seek help, because men are having challenges with mental health issues. They are holding a lot of things. They can't even say to somebody else, I'm failing, because when you fail as a man, you are seen not to be a male enough. So when we move from toxic masculinity, we would have men that would be able voluntarily to come and say, social worker, I need to, you to assist me with anger management program so that I'm able to raise, my boy, my family, my wife, my child well. I need to protect them. I need to ensure that they understand that I am core in this world. That they're not just here to accompany me to live my life. So we want men that will come and volunteer in our program, men championing change, men that will say, now we want to go in the forefront and talk to other men and denounce this toxic masculinity so that our men becomes the better version of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Sis Patience. This is Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman. We are talking on toxic masculinity and its contribution to gender-based violence. Even as we observe the 16 days of activism, even as government has taken a stance to say it's a 365-day campaign, we cannot say after the 16 days we are done, because we have observed that this is a pandemic. It's something that we need to deal with. It doesn't only affect the person next to you, but it affects the whole society. And as a nation, we would like to build a wonderful country, but with GBV, we cannot be able to do that because we are violating each other's rights. Let us go on an ad break. As we come back on our last set, we're going to be talking on issues around families, how we ought to respond, and what is it that you can do as a prudent woman within that family. This patient has told us that the law now also allows you to be able to report incidences that you may be observing within your own family and your own society. Let us go on a break. We'll be right back with you. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself. I'm RHULANI Baloyi. I am your host. Today we are talking about toxic masculinity and its contribution to gender-based violence. We have with us as patient Napo, who is a social worker. She's talking to us about this pandemic. Says patients, you know, one thing that is coming so often lately, which one may have thought we are such a modern society. And when you look at South Africa, you cannot say we are a third world country. At times, we have got a lot of characteristics that talks to us as a first world country, but we tend to see a whole lot of backwardness on things that mostly affects human rights of other people. There's this thing that is coming so often in the media lately about families who are still able to turn their daughter back to their marital home just because they say your husband has paid lobola, not wanting to even try and sit down and talk to the couple and see how they can help them. And we are seeing it coming more often, and we see women who endures all this type of violence, and they're not able to go back home and seek for help. What will you like to say with families who still behaves in that way? And some of them saying, when you talk GBV, it's a private matter within a family.
Thank you, Sesurulan. You know, I'm happy when you talk about that because I think I want to spend much time on this one. You know, the fact that we have created a society where, you know, men are given power over women or control over women. It has become that, and it's also, you know, influenced by our parents, both males and females. And in some of the instances, you will realize that the male person might say, oh, my daughter, please come back. And the mother would say, no, you cannot come back. What are the people going to say? We are in a world that is full of competition. You know, some of the reason, if you ask women that, you know, their relationship is no longer working, and you ask them, why are you still there? It's because if I go and my cousin is still married, you know, my uncle is going to say your kids are failures. So the people are meant to stay for very selfish reasons that are not even worth for somebody else to stay. But one thing that I also want to indicate is that marriage is never a cakewalk. So if you're in the marriage and you both are not willing to work with your partners to address issues in the marriage. For me, it doesn't matter how long you stay in that marriage, but at the end of the day, you are going to lose yourself. The challenge of staying in those kind of marriages, number one, is that they create anxiety. They create depression. Your mental health. You staying in an unhealthy marriage is even more detrimental to mental health than divorce. So for me, if you go and divorce, I think you will deal with the issues of divorce. You would heal over time. But when you stay in an unhealthy and unhappy relationship, you develop what you call an trauma-induced emotion. So you cope with something that you're not supposed to cope with, and you walk with it every day. Number two, you even lose your touch with yourself. It is a self-betrayal to deny your own needs by telling yourself it is okay to stay in a chaotic relationship. I mean, you can't betray yourself like that, because at the same time, that this person is not going to change. You've tried everything and it is not working. And the one thing that I would like also to indicate is staying in an unhealthy relationship has a deep-rooted trauma in children. You see your children today, they hip hop from one relationship to another. They're trying to figure out what is the perfect relationship, because they've never seen it. You've shown them that the perfect relationship is the relationship where I'm always a secondary citizen in my own marriage. The deep fear of intimacy, feeling abandoned, your low self-esteem, also to believe that in a relationship you need to be hurt by someone, and you hate yourself for people who are not even at fault. When you stay in the relationship, I always say you always cry at the wrong funeral. Either you will drink heavily, you will cheat on your spouse, you'll bury yourself. Some of the people bury themselves in their work, day in, day night, taking anger out on kids or other people, because you are told that like if you go, you are a failure. You become toxic. Whatever you hate in your partner start creeping in your personality. We see this person who is just angry about anything and everything. All of this unhealthy coping mechanism might bring you relief temporary. Like you would find a way people saying, nah, kinatava, even if it does that, I'm fine. It brings you a temporary relief, but at the same time, you will fail to fulfill your life. You will have your stroke, your high blood pressure, and all those kind of diseases. And I always say, therapy. People always say therapy. I advise that couple must go for therapy. Couple must go for counseling. But therapy, is not some miraculous cure. Like it can't cure you if you and your partner are not willing to work. It can't be one person willing to work on this relationship and the other one not willing to work. So I advise parents, if your child come and say a relationship is not working for different reasons, and more special reason like your cheating, your financial problems, your inability to compromise, the lack of empathy. For me, if the therapy did not work, counseling did not work, I'll advise parents to welcome their kids home with warm hands, because there's no prize for you to have stayed in a marriage for 70 years, but at the same time you are crippled. You can't even sit to tell the story about your marriage because you forced yourself to stay in an unhealthy relationship. And sometimes we need to agree. And I think also our churches also need to embrace the fact that yes, marriage is made, it's come from God. But if it doesn't work, our pastors, our seniors in church, they should not force people to stay in those marriages, because sometimes people are staying with people that have mental health issues, serious mental health issues. Every day you are dealing with these issues. Every morning you wake up, you are not happy, but this person comes to church. They pray, says RHULANI, they cry. When their tears are rolling, the pastor is happy, or this one is having Holy Spirit. Only to realize that this person is suffering from a lot of issues that they are unable to deal with, because in church, they are meant to display that their relationship is working because they have to pray about it. They have to do 1, 2, 3. Yes, there's somewhere where prayers work, but where you have two individuals that are not the same, when you are praying, also pray that God gives you enough courage to leave that relationship.
And when they're at church, they're praying and crying. As you rightfully put it, they are crying at the wrong funeral because you think someone is spiritual. Kanti, they are thinking of all those things that they were dealing with and they are now crying. And as you say, it says patience. Mina, I am of a belief that it is a lie for us, most especially women. We tend to say, I'm staying in this relationship for the sake of my children. And as you are saying, you are impacting negatively on your children because they may not know the right thing because you are showing them the wrong thing, and you are affirming that wrong thing. And they will later hop from one relationship to another, or even enjoy the same way you did, or even reject someone who is willing to love, to show them their best. But because they do not know it, then they reject that. So I think it's about time as women, we start with ourselves. It's not true to say I'm staying in this abusive relationship for the sake of my children, but it must be I want to raise my children in a healthy environment. So if this relationship is not working, I should be able to say, let me remove myself from it and build a healthy environment to raise my children because I love them. So thank you very much. I love something that our pastor usually says. And he likes saying, when a couple gets married, he says, it's two histories colliding. So it's about you learning to live with each other. It's about both of you compromising to get to know each other. But as you say, if the other party is not willing, then there's no point of staying because it means the one party that is willing will forever struggle. And of course, there's a lot of mental health problems that as individuals we suffer from. And it's important even for you, either as a man or a woman, to be able to identify because you end up staying with someone who's got a mental health challenge and you're dealing with it on a daily basis. And life is passing by, it's not waiting for you. And at the end of it all, you never lived a fulfilled life. Thank you very much, says Patience. Our time is never enough. But as you bid us farewell, says Patience, I just want to invite you to, as a woman, we are heading towards the festives. Your advice as a social worker and as a woman on how, as us, as prudent women, we can ensure that we enjoy the time that we're going to spend with our families. And again, our responsibility. I'm sure through this conversation, each one of us realize that we all have got a role to play. What will be our responsibility? What is it that you like to advise us in terms of our responsibility fighting gender-based violence? And again, how can we make sure that we enjoy our festive season as prudent women?
Thank you, Cecil. And I think what I would like to advise women is for women to be able to separate between the issue, the person, and the situation. It's during festive season. People are always angry. Like when somebody else passes you and they don't greet you, you've already taken it personal to say it's because they are hating on me. That's why they are not greeting me. And also, as women, we need to respect people without even checking their status. I kept on saying when I give this example about the issue, the person, and the situation, is that one thing that is killing us as a nation is that if, let me give an example, a president comes and says to us, you are not complying with the social distancing, I'm giving that as an example, will immediately comply. But if a cleaner comes and say you are not, looking into the issues of social distancing, we will say, hi, Wena, you would say like, hi, Wena, you are just a cleaner in 1, 2, 3. The two people have raised the same issue. It's two different people. The situation is the same. But the way in which we treat them differently. I would really want to urge our people to actually treat everybody equal. And before you get angry about anything, you need to be able to identify the issues that are affecting, that are being raised there. It should not be about it's somebody else who has raised it, so I must be angry about it. And I want women to be safe. Women must report. We have a hotline number. Our 0800 428 428 is the GBVF command center. They can report the cases of GBV anytime, any day, 24 hours. It's non-stop. They will get assistance. They will link them with all the area social workers that are there. And all the prudent women and everyone, please enjoy your festive season. Be safe. Always remember, if it is not working, it is not working. It is not your fault. You should be very quick to forgive yourself. If you wanted to do something and you could not do them, please forgive yourself. You still have time. God has still given you an opportunity to wake up and improve on your circumstances. Thank you, Sis RHULANI, and thank you to all the prudent women.
Thank you so much, Sis Patience. What a wonderful session. What an important information you have shared with us. And I would like to believe each and every one of us who were listening to you, we now understand our role as in the gender-based violence, in fighting gender-based violence. And even if you are listening and you are a perpetrator, I'm sure today you are able to realize that you may be a perpetrator. And there's nothing wrong when you realize something that you did not see all along. What's important is to repent. She said you can also go and seek for help as a perpetrator. But above all, I am excited that we are all able to report gender-based violence in our society. So let us be each other's keeper. Let us go all out and watch each other's back and be able to help a sister. You are not doing it for that person only, but it's for the whole nation, because as part of the nation, what affects the next person affects you one way or another. We are all responsible. Thank you so much, Says Patience, and we appreciate all the professionals who are helping us as a nation to fight this pandemic, and all the people who have started NGOs who are doing so much in fighting this pandemic. Because with us continuing this way, there is no way we can build a better South Africa, but we need to build a strong, healthy South Africa by building strong and healthy human beings. Thank you very much to all of you who were listening to us. I believe you had a wonderful time. I see some of our listeners and our viewers saying they can't believe that we have run out of time. And of course, even myself, I cannot believe, because there was a whole lot of other things that we wanted to talk to our guest about, but there will be other moments where we're going to be talking about this issue. As she has said, it's not only between the 25th and the 10th of December, but it's a year-long fight against gender-based violence. So we are welcome to continue to talk about it, create awareness in your own space as a prudent woman, talk about these things, help the next sister. It is not for us to laugh at each other when it's not working, because at times we stay in these abusive relationships because I'm fearful that they are going to laugh at me to say it has failed. Actually, we must be saying, you are a strong person to be able to do something that I am failing to do, or I have not done it, because you stood up and say, I cannot be in this environment. Thank you very much to our technical team, DJ Macy. Thank you very much for your support. And our executive producer, Pastor Strike, who would like to say thank you. And all of you who are listening and watching us, have a blessed week ahead, even as you get ready to celebrate your festives. I trust that you are doing responsible shopping, and none of us as prudent women, we're going to regret come January. We understand that enjoying ourselves does not mean spending money that we do not have. I would like to say, go all out and become prudent woman. Make intentional decisions, make intentional buying, even as we celebrate this wonderful season, the season of Christmas. And as Bold Moves Radio would like to say, have a wonderful week ahead, even as you get ready. Just right now at 5:30, we'll be having our favorite pastor, Pastor Frida Matebula. She'll be coming in with the Living Word Outreach Program. On Tuesday, we have the African Experience. Have a blessed week ahead and enjoy yourself. We'll be back with you on Sunday from 4 o'clock up until 5 o'clock. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Streaming 24/7. 24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana, oh Afrika nakupenda sana.